There we go. Okay. Hi, Bill.
Morning.
Ah,
I discovered the slowest traffic in the world is when you get caught on a roundabout behind a road sweeper.
Ooh, that's pretty slow, I'll bet.
And, and that created a long line of trucks coming down the connector, which were ahead of me. So by the time 10 miles an hour all the way to Ray Hill, I'm late.
Well, it was teaching you patience.
Yeah.
Good. Questions? Comments? How's your whatever practice you were able to do this week?
Mine was okay, but minimal. Jesse, actually, I don't know if you remember, Jesse was here homesick last Tuesday. He actually ended up being homesick the whole rest of the week. 2 days.
Ooh, what did
Yeah,
he have?
he'd never in his school life missed 2 consecutive days due to illness ever until now. And he missed 4 in a row this week. Plus, he was still pretty sick Saturday. We didn't
Ah,
get to go to the Earth Day celebration in Orlando that we wanted to go to. So he was quite sick with some kind of flu, and it was I was fighting it off too while I was taking care of him. So I had a minimal week. I did little spurts of practice, so I don't feel like I made much progress. Just kind of worked on a few things here and there, but that's about all I was able to do this week.
okay.
Unfortunately, but yeah,
Understandable.
yeah, it happened.
I got some in, not as much as I would have liked, but we were away
Right.
for the weekend. Um, on the opening and closing, I it's a continuing process. Of course, I've done it in God's,
Yeah.
for some time, but trying to keep the muscles out of it, um,
Yeah.
and out and not only opening and closing, but lengthening, which overlaps.
Yep.
So I'm not sure whether to. Well, I can hear you saying divide it up, take one thing at a time. um,
Darn.
but I don't. Well, I guess getting the muscles out of it would be the first step. No matter if it's lengthening or opening.
So let me say, let me preface my reply to Bill that since we're going into a rather thorough training on opening and closing in gods, I decided that I would carry that into this class too, which I don't think Bill will mind.
No.
No, I'm very happy to hear that actually, because I really would like to work on this more.
Yeah. Um, so one of the things about what you were saying is the first practice is to do it physically, muscularly,
Really? Okay.
and be aware of that and able to feel 100% and 70% physically with the muscles. And then do it and if you can't feel you can feel that, which I don't doubt you could without too much trouble. You want to do it at 70% and be open to the transition
Okay.
to being internal, because you can't make that transition with your mind.
Yeah.
You have to feel it, and that's where one of the things I talked about was doing it physically until you realize that I can do something here without being physical. That something is happening in there. That I'm not making it happen.
Okay.
And that's a hard bridge.
Yeah.
But not-
so far with both the lengthening and the opening and closing, when I've done it physically, which I have, I've felt guilty. Well, not guilty, but I
Get whatever
I've thought,
that was.
you shouldn't, you should be. You shouldn't have to be forcing the issue. So this is useful for me to know.
Yeah. It is. So, anything else for you?
No.
Did that?
I got one quick question then.
Sure.
In your experience, do you feel when you flow, when you do your practice or whatever practice it may be, when you are connecting with the earth and its energy, do you feel a variance in your strength of connection based on the season?
There is a very different connection based on the season. Let me put it that way. Because it isn't, part of it is strength, but part of it is quality. I had at one point when I did those, I don't know, 5 or 6 weekend workshops with Bill Ryan, and we were working on all of this. We were working on gods for one thing. But one of the things was that he was very tuned to helping us experience the difference of each season, because the workshops were spaced pretty much seasonally. And so we did a practice standing meditation at the beginning of each of those workshops that was meant for us to become aware of what that season felt like, how we related to its energy, which was great. And because it was a weekend workshop, we didn't have to rush. So those meditation standings, practices, whatever we did that season, were not a matter of just a few minutes. We often spent an hour on it. So that is a very good point. And all I can suggest to you is to, as a season begins to transition, to go outside in every season and stand for a little bit and just feel how it's different. How is the energy different? What's happening here? And it's,
Well,
go ahead.
The reason I ask is because this morning when I got back from bringing Jesse to school, as I said, I hadn't done a lot of practice this week, so I did a slow flow with this morning.
Mm-hmm.
Felt more of a connection to the earth here where I am than I usually do.
Yeah.
The spring is here. I feel it all around us. I see it. I'm cutting the grass again, blah, blah, blah. We planted a garden, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So the season is in full roll, and I felt different when I did that flow than I have felt recently.
Yeah.
Even though for me, autumn is usually the season I feel most alive, I actually felt more of a connection just now than I generally do. So it came to my mind, gee, I wonder why that is. I mean, I
Yeah.
live right in a pond in our backyard. We've got a fairly, a lot of grass and trees around here for Florida. So it's fairly good in terms of nature and potential connection with the earth. And I just felt it more than usual this morning. And it came to mind with, gee, I'm wondering why that is. Am I actually making progress maybe with my opening and closing? Is it the seasons? Is it combination? So questions all over the place.
I don't know about opening and closing particularly, but certainly it's
Yeah.
an indication of increasing awareness of
Mm. Yeah.
the energy around you and probably within you also.
Right.
So,
Okay.
let us go on.
That helps.
Can I do just a quick follow-up?
Yes.
I hope it's quick, because I have a strong relationship with nature, and I like all the seasons.
Mhm.
Perhaps not quite equally. Fall is probably my favorite, but I feel differently in each one.
Mhm.
Is the Tai Chi feeling different from that in some way? Would you say?
I would say that your practice can feel different in each season.
Okay.
Is that what you?
Yeah,
I, whatever it is,
okay,
not just the Tai Chi.
okay, yeah,
Because as you tune into those seasonal differences, you become more aware of it and their influence on what you're doing and what you're feeling will increase. And so every part of your practice actually will eventually feel different in each season, particularly if you're working outside.
okay,
I mean, if you're practicing outside.
Yeah.
No, it's a good question. What that brought back was when I was a real beginner. My first teacher had a weekend workshop in the winter, and we were at his home, which was way out in the country, not far from here, as a matter of fact. And in the middle of the morning, he suddenly said, "Okay, everybody put their coats on. We're going outside to practice." And none of us had really ever thought about that.
right.
There was about 6 inches of snow on the ground. It was cold. What do you mean, practice outside? And that was my first experience, and I realized then, even that time, that I could still have a good practice even though I was not terribly fond of the season.
Yeah.
But anyway, yes, seasons, yes.
Okay.
So, by the way, I'm doing an abbreviated version because Jeff has had some more
Right.
experience with this. So, I am going to do some talking. Let me because I want to try to show a couple of things on here for you, Jeff. So I'm going to... have you got full screen?
Almost, yeah. This is taking up the full screen. You are about 3/4 of it.
Okay.
As long as I have my glasses on, I can read it fine.
Okay. Sounds like you're better at that than I am. So there are two basic things when you're going to work with opening and closing the joints. First, there is just the basic sense of vertically opening and closing the joints, and then later actually the space of opening and closing them with a spherical manner. And that really causes the fluids inside the joints to move in all directions. And we will look at that later. We're going to start with the vertical. So, what are openings and closings? Everything inside your body, its functions, if it functions, opens and closes. And what does opening and closing actually mean? So opening is a really, it's no problem to understand opening for us. Opening is very simple. Opening, it gets larger, and that's opening. But closing is not exactly the same, because what closing actually is condensing. But it's not condensing with any type of force. So from the Chinese point of view, an opening is a truly yang action, and closing is a truly yin one. Now, we're going to begin this starting off with the joints of your hand, your elbows and your feet, and then your ribs. So most people have a lot more ability to feel the joints of their upper body because they move them all the time, really more than they do the joints of their lower body. So we're going to start with what's relatively easy and move to what's more difficult later on. Now let's look at the basic procedure. So basically, the joints that we're going to start working with are ball and socket joints. And with that, of course, the ball moves into the socket and it moves out of the socket. Closing, opening. So that's pretty easy to understand that. Everything in your arms, that's pretty much what's going to happen. So if you look at my hands here for a moment, I'm going to do this first physically. Now this is, I will just make a side note that often this is taught with partner work, but basically we don't have that option, although I could with Bill, and we may at some point demonstrate some of that. But you can hold your arm above your wrist and anchor your elbow to your ribs so that the whole arm isn't moving. And then doing it muscularly, you can see very clearly when it moves to 100% and 100% closed. So the muscular movement is really pretty easy to see. However, when it transitions really to being more internal and you're not using much muscles, and admittedly there are muscles attached to all the bones, so they and tendons and fascia are probably going to move a little, but now what I'm doing is I'm opening and closing without directly using my muscles. And so the movement is smaller, but I'm not using my muscles to make it happen. And that's what we're eventually trying to move towards. And as you can see, that's a vertical movement. It just opens and closes. We're not worrying about whether it is spherical or not at this point. So the next problem, however, is how do you feel inside the joints? Because the only way you're going to know if you're doing it is to be able to feel it. So we start off with something very simple. If we look at a human joint, it has connection points. And there, here is the point where the wrist, so the wrist, obviously here is the junction point for the wrist. And it's very easy to see where that is because the wrist is fairly large and fairly mobile. So I did that. So when I did that first movement of using the muscles, you're really trying to find out what is 100% open and what is 100% closed. And so the muscular movement is very good for that because obviously it can move everything as much as it is possible to move it. So that's the first thing that we're going to be doing in a little bit. Boom, boom, boom. And then of course you're going to move it inward. So the first thing to do is really just to establish clearly what is 100% open and what is 100% closed. But then, of course, the next step is to try to be aware of and moving it only 70%. And you start, as I was talking to Bill earlier, with just opening it 70% and closing it 70%. And the movement, of course, is smaller, but it starts physically. Because probably you can't do it internally yet at this stage. And so you need to really get that clear in your mind what is 70% out and what is 70% in. And we, of course, eventually want to be able to do that with every movement we make. And if you're lucky, when you're doing that physical movement, you start feeling something moving inside your wrist. And that is because the flow of the fluids inside your wrist is going to cause, create one fluid movement that's going to just start start doing this, which is what you do every time you move your hands. But it's not only that it's actually going to cause a current of, but it's not only that it's going to actually cause a current of chi or energy to start moving that way and moving back in and out and in and out. So the first thing I want you to do, and let me go back to there it is. Okay. So the first thing I want you to do is to do that physical movement with each of your wrists. So you want to grab the forearm above the wrist, so you're not restricting the wrist movement, and then anchor your elbow to your side so that the arm above the wrist and up to the elbow stays where it is. And then using your muscles, just be aware of opening 100%, as much as you can possibly go. And then you want to come back 100%, closing in as much as you can possibly go.
David, at this point, when we're using our muscles, why isn't closing 100% essentially making a fist? Why do we?
Why is it what?
Not
Why,
make-
if we're closing all the way with our muscles,
Mm-hmm.
why aren't we actually closing all the way to a fist?
All the way to what?
a
A
fist.
fist,
To what?
A fist.
A fist.
like closing our hand all the way to a fist like that.
Because what happens if you do a fist, it blocks the movement. If you try this, you open all the way and you
Right.
close all the way. What happens is it doesn't allow the wrist to fully close. I go in further when I let go of the fist, because the fist tenses all the muscles it expands them, so that if you watch, here I am, and I'm going in as far as I can with a fist.
Right.
If I let go of the fist a little bit, I go in further. Okay.
Go in where? In your wrist?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was focusing at this point more on the fingers opening and closing than the wrist.
Do not focus on your fingers.
Alright.
Do not focus on your hand.
Okay.
Focus on the wrist. We are only in this practice doing the wrist.
Okay. So now I've got to find where I feel that maximum flexible closing then.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I did feel what you were saying in the wrist with my hand on there. I felt the
Yeah.
muscle.
I mean, you want to feel the movement out and the movement in, and you don't want to restrict that movement in any way.
Okay.
Okay? So certainly the fingers and the hand will be expanding, opening out at the same time, but we're not focusing there. You're feeling the wrist, because that's the point of the exercise, is feel what's happening in the wrist. not what's happening anywhere else.
Okay.
And so the wrist goes out and open, and it comes in and closes. And I can't tell you how much movement you'll have. I have probably about an inch. So part of this is not to start with a tense wrist. Let your wrist relax. And then stretch out that wrist as far as it will go. And then pull it in as far as it will go. And that's our first exercise, okay? And you want to do that with both wrists until you feel you're really clear and able, without holding the arm, to open 100% and close 100%. So there are two steps to that. So just play with that for a minute or two.
We're using muscles, focusing on muscles 100% on this.
Yes, this is because you're trying to open 100% and close 100%. You're using 100%. Yes. And the other thing I'll say about the fist question is that since you're not focusing on the hand, since obviously making a fist is a hand and finger movement, there is a response. You can't extend your wrist as far as it will go and close your wrist as far as it will go without, if you're using your muscles, without causing the fingers and hand to respond, but you're not focusing there. You're trying to really feel that wrist. And because one of the things is we have to go through, if we're really going to do this, we really have to go through every joint and make sure that you are really clear and able to actually open and close it before you combine everything, because you couldn't possibly think about it or see it and do that. So this is like everything else. We do one step at a time, and then we add another.
Cool.
Counterintuitive to our Western accomplish it yesterday mode. There's no right or wrong about anything we do in our practice in terms of when you are able to do it. And that is, of course, difficult for you because as you know, my favorite word, the one thing that makes a difference is practice. If you practice, you go forward. If you don't practice, you don't as fast. You can still progress, but it's different. So don't put pressure on yourself to achieve something that it's unreasonable to achieve.
Yeah. Well, I know. I mean, my initial question about the fingers and the fist, I was erroneously focusing on the fingers, not the wrist.
Yeah. Yep. Next week.
Now that I'm doing that,
So
As I do this, I'm seeing the wrist.
yeah. So you don't have to focus on 100% a long time.
Right.
It may only be a day or two. You really feel that you're really aware of what that 100% is, because the next step is to start the same way, do the same thing, but only open 70% and close 70%, and do it physically. You simply start with physical. And when you go to this, it obviously feels much more pleasant because you're not straining anything. 70% doesn't have any strain in it. And as you continue to do this, and you can do it without having to hold your wrist, that allows you to, as you continue just doing this, this is when you make the transition. Oh, there's something else moving that. It's not just my muscles. And it can take a day, a week, a month, a year, who knows? But and we have to do this with each joint of the body. And I don't expect probably either one of you to accomplish this in the time that I'm going to teach it to you, because if I had to wait for that, I may live to 110, but I'm not sure.
Right.
So we'll progress each week, being aware of another joint, but your practice may be still at the wrist. Okay. So, a question there? Did that help you at all, Bill?
Yeah. I'm at a point where I think I have something internal going.
Good.
It's certainly not entirely physical, but who knows?
Yeah, you are the only one who can know.
I'm sorry? Yeah.
You're the only one who can know.
Yeah. But I can certainly tell the difference between this and that.
Uh-huh.
I mean, that was without pulling or anything. So.
Good. Do you have a question there?
No, I don't think so. And the wrist, it's a big enough joint, and I can hold it close enough to my face that I can actually see the movement.
Yeah.
That's helpful.
Yep, it is.
Yeah.
Okay, so what I would like you to do is do the 8 gates and see if you can move your wrists opening and closing physically or whatever in each movement, because that's what's happening. So when you begin, you're closing up to the center and you're opening, and then you're closing and opening, and that process goes right on through the whole practice. So this gives you another way to do it, and you can start by just doing it physically and being aware that those movements are only 70%, not 100. And actually, I would have to say, and this may only have been me, but I found that practicing this these concepts with Qigong or Tai Chi, I progressed, or I became aware of it, really aware of it, and was able to use it much more quickly. But that was me. It's not necessarily you, but you can certainly, since you're doing a lot of different things that you already know in these movements, so you don't have to think about what's next, I hope. So you could focus on the wrist in each of these movements and let whatever happens.
Okay.
So 8 gates. I might say this might explain even better why we try to find the middle of each movement. Because each half of each movement is doing several things. So you bend, twist, lengthen, close, and then the next one you do the opening. And you're extending, twisting open, lengthening out. So it goes right along with the rhythm of what you have been working on. Good. You, you have made noticeable progress with that. It looked very connected and continuous. And how were your wrists?
This felt good this morning. There was relatively little muscle movement throughout my body, so
Mhm.
it was, yeah,
Yeah.
it was an enjoyment to feel some of the twisting going on at the same time as the opening, etc. Everything sort of
Good.
together.
Good. Good. How did that feel to you, Jeff?
I noticed more, felt more energy flow and movement on the postures where I wasn't just opening, but where there was more twisting also, like
Mm-hmm.
for instance, right here.
Uh-huh.
I felt like my wrists were opening and closing more on those 3 or 4 postures in particular, this and this and this. And I think there was one other that I seemed to feel it more when
Mm-hmm.
I was incorporating more twisting into it. Um, but it was a good start for me, I think, in working on this.
Good. Good. Is this an early day for you, or?
No, I don't. I can stay normal today.
Oh, okay. I hadn't asked about that. So
Yeah.
one of the things, of course, because I think I have to at least at some point mentioned that when we go to the form, that the very first posture, actually in the Wu style, is just opening and closing. And so at this point, you can do it and perhaps just feel the wrist. So letting the wrist open and close. So there won't be much movement except the wrist going out and coming in. Just to be a little more clear, eventually when you are able to open and close through the entire body, the movement grows. And it doesn't get huge, because if you take it beyond where you can just allow the energy to do it, it starts to tense up and block. So you're trying to see, how can I open and close throughout my entire body eventually? Obviously, that requires that every joint in your body is opening and closing simultaneously. But you can certainly simply start with allowing that vertical opening and closing of the wrists. And you will find that only doing that will probably increase the flow of energy, at least through your hands, if not other places. So, I don't expect you necessarily to do that, but that is what is actually preparation in the Wu style. so that the next posture is grasping the sparrow's tail. So grasping the sparrow's tail is not the first posture in the form. And so it's good at this point I've talked about taking the time to stand at the beginning. Now you can begin to think about just opening and closing for a bit at whatever stage you are. And then going into the form.
What do you actually call the first posture, David? Do you call it start?
Preparation.
Preparation. Okay.
Yeah.
On our sheet it said start. That's why I wasn't really sure what we.
Oh, that. Yeah, it's. I don't remember now why that is, but actually it's preparation.
Okay. Yeah, it says start Wu-Ji to Tai-Ji. So it's probably a different point you were trying to make.
Yeah, at that point, because that's actually what's happening, of course, when you're doing
Right.
that.
Right.
But it usually is, I think, traditionally referred to as preparation.
Okay.
I remember now. I wrote it that way because I wanted you to be aware of making that transition.
Right. And both are happening. It's just that we refer to it differently. So.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, do you have either of you have questions in the form?
There was one point I just wanted to look at again. Where we're doing this.
Wait a minute. I have to. If you're going to show me, I have to change the screen. Just a second.
Okay. This part, this, and then hands.
It's which part?
Where we come around and we do this to this to this.
Oh, doing lift hand and then into high pat.
Yes, that from the kick, from the kick and scoop into lift hand into high pat. Just kind of the in and out flow in that, and what we're doing. I'd like to look at that again. I felt it was all mushy for me this morning when I did it.
Okay.
Towards the in and out because I didn't flow to your narrated one.
Yeah.
On my own, so I wasn't clear enough.
So that actually comes out of single whip.
Yep.
So you're in single whip, and then you're going to go. You're closing. I'll use different terms now. You're closing as you come to here and here, and then you're opening. So it's like the first 2/3 or 3/4 of that posture is closing, and just the last movement is opening.
Okay.
Okay.
And then after that, we have just like a little bit of a shift forward to start that all, don't we?
So you get to here, and you're actually going to come back to turn that right foot. And you're drawing in, and going into high pat.
So to go into that from where we finish lift hands to go into that turn, I thought there was a little bit of an initial shift forward as we start to turn. That's what was confusing me a little. Is that more of a out and then an in?
No, because what you're doing actually is well, there's a very, 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 very subtle movement forward as you go from high pat into that turn so that you round the corner.
Okay.
But you're not shifting the weight forward significantly.
All right. Maybe I was putting too much emphasis on that very, 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 very slight movement.
So when you go into you complete lift hand, you're just turning and drawing in and continuing in and then out.
All right. Well, that clarifies that. Then that's where I was having a little bit of a problem with it.
Sure.
That turn into high pat.
Yeah, it's eventually part of that. The transition in that one is one of the ones where it's really kind of where do you feel it? Where do you complete that?
Right.
Because you could come in and the out. It's really when the arms begin to separate and you begin to rise.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right. That helped. That helped me figure out the problem. I was putting too much emphasis onto a forward shift, where it's really just a rounding. It's not so much a shift.
Yeah. What was that? That was not what we just did. Nope, you're going back. Yeah, around the corner. And then up, yes. And remember that at this point you're at your normal bow stance, and you're still at that. And here you have gone up slightly. 70% of the way you can go up. But that's part of that movement. You're using the body to split those arms. Yeah. Yeah?
Yep.
Do you have any questions? Do you want to pose?
No. No. I'm pretty aware of all the places I screw up.
You're not screwing up. You're working on them. Get rid of that screw up in your head. That's Master Job will leap out of his picture and hit you.
It's probably what I need. You need to hit me.
So, why don't you do a flow?
Right.
And be clear about where you think the opening and closings are, and if you also have room in your mind, you could begin to be aware of what's happening with your wrists. But that may be too much, and if it is, you can work on actually opening and closing later on. At this point, the primary thing is to be aware of where opening and closing are, and making sure your movements and other parts are in coordination with that. So, Jeff, I got into really watching Bill, so I'll look at you next week.
Problem.
So the first thing I wanted to mention is I'll just do a couple because I don't want to overload you, but embrace. So we've gone into single whip. We touch, we step back, and we pull down, and we're at 60% on the right foot. And then we stay 60% on the right foot as we turn. And then you shift to 60% on the left as you embrace. And then you rotate and come in.
Yeah.
Is that you were?
Yeah, and my body weight is, not doing that.
Yeah. The second one I wanted to look at was Subdue Tiger. And one thing to think about I would say in all of your movements is I don't see the coming in and the going out a lot. Doesn't have to be big. You're beginning to do smaller movements, which is fine if that's what feels right to you. But after we've gone to high pat, we're up.
Mm-hmm.
So we're coming in on, what am I doing here?
Yeah.
No, I'm doing the wrong. Okay. Boom, 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 boom. High pat. And then we're coming in, step, and you've got to keep coming in till you're halfway through and then out. So there has to be both an in and an out in that movement. What you're doing is just going out, 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 out. I don't see any in happening. And that's true of both of the Subdued Tigers. It's a hard one.
Okay.
Along with incense, same thing. We come back into that, and we have to, as we're going down, we have to come in, and at some point begin to go out. So that one obviously is you're making the same physical movement of in terms of what the body and the legs are doing, but the arms and the energy are doing yin and yang. Does that make?
Yes. Among other things, while I was doing the wave hands, which has been all along one of my favorite passages, I suddenly realized that there was a lot of opening and closing that I wasn't doing.
Yeah.
That it doesn't stop in there just because it's...
No, it doesn't. You got it. Well, that's a good awareness.
Yeah.
That's great. That's what practice is about. Really good. Jeff, did you have any particular questions?
No, I'm working on that same thing, the coming in with the arms and out, and trying to coordinate that with the rotation. Both those kicks and also on gargoyles.
Yeah.
Gargoyles
is another one, yeah.
Because for the longest time, I had not been coming in much, if at all, and I'm trying to just get that in, that whole arm
Yeah.
curve along with the rotation of the arms to get them, rotating slowly throughout, because that I'm not doing very well yet either.
Yeah. The gargoyles, one of the nice things is that you rotate in one direction in and the other direction out.
Yeah.
So
I like the posture quite a bit. It's just getting it, the feel and the flow and the timing of everything
yeah,
to
yeah,
be right, because it's, the arm rotation in there is never been felt right for me. So
yeah. All the way through.
yeah.
Great. Thank you guys. Good
Thank you.
class.
Have a good week.
You
Yep,
too.
you too.
Hey guys, take care.
Jesse's
Yep.
feeling all right?
Yeah, he's not quite 100%, but he's pretty close. Like, he was back to school yesterday. He's back to school now.
Oh,
So
good.
he's doing better.
Great.
Sunday was the turning point finally. Yeah.
Good.
Thanks for asking.
Yeah.
All right.
Have a good
Take care,
week.
guys.
How was your trip?
It was fine. We had good weather. We've been up numerous times to the Cape. It's an easy getaway for us when we
Yeah.
want to do just a weekend or something of that sort. So
Yeah.
we've done all the major exploring in that area of the Cape. So it was just revisiting this or that, nothing pushed or rushed, So,
Great.
yeah.
We had a great World Tai Chi Day. Have you ever been to Wickham Park?
I probably have not. I mean, largely because it falls. Generally, my wife's birthday is the 20th. Our
Well,
anniversary is the
we've never had this at
26th.
Wickham Park before.
Oh, okay.
This is the
Yeah.
first time.
No,
No, the park is just spectacular on its own. That's why I was. If you're ever looking for someplace to go and walk, that
Yeah.
they've got a whole bunch of different gardens based on different cultures.
I
Miles of
The
trail.
name is familiar. It's possible that we've been there. I
Uh-huh.
mean, we've made it a point over the years to do day trips to state parks and
Maybe you
botanical gardens, et cetera, et cetera.
could- it was really gorgeous.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't think we're going to move to doing it every year there, but I think we may very well. No, that's not what you want to do, David. We may very well do every other year, or but I think we'll probably keep Colchester